Okay, let's do this. How you doing, Dalton? Better than me?
Look, I've had 24 hours to stew on my team losing a game to make their series a 1-1 series. So I'm not doing amazing, but I have my blood pressure is chill right now. Whereas the Yankees lost less than 5 minutes ago. So I really want to let you, because obviously we'll do a little Dodger rant, little Yankee rant. And then I figure we'll just kind of give some thoughts on each of the series, talk about what we think is going to happen. But we're not looking to go long tonight. But
No.
I don't want to really delay giving you an opportunity to sound off. So
Yeah. So I appreciate that. First of all, so this is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. Let's just get all the housekeeping out of the way. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown, as you can see by the display on your page right there. The first two games of this series were unbelievably exhausting. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the way that I had previewed the series as okay. I think we're going to get real good starting pitching, right? Garrett Cole's a big game pitcher. Carlos Rodon, outside of 4 starts in the middle of the summer, has been pretty dominant for most of the year. That really hasn't been the case. It's been very mediocre starting pitching. I'm kind of at the point now where I almost feel like how well your roster is constructed doesn't mean jack dick. I don't know that it matters at all. At all. The Kansas City Royals, in all respect to them, right? Because you and I both said it, that this team was very ripe. They're not ready for the postseason. This is a team that is super young, on the come up, but not ready. And I still believe that. I don't think that they're ready for the postseason, but what the fuck do I know? Michael Garcia has a 4-hit night tonight, right? Kyle Isbell is hitting the ball hard. Michael Massey is turning into the guy looks like fucking Dustin Pedroia. What is going on here? For a team that for Kansas City, who and especially over the last 2 or 3 weeks, has been asleep at the plate. Asleep. Now we're getting now everybody in the lineup can hit. Right? I'm losing it.
I can totally appreciate that, first of all. This is the thing about baseball, right? At the end of the day, the harsh reality of our sport is we take a sport that requires a massive sample size to truly determine much of anything about the teams involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sample size play out over the course of 6 months. And then we get to October and we say, fuck that. Can you win 3 out of 5 or can you win 4 out of 5? And the reality of baseball is that the Yankees could be playing the Oakland A's. I'm not going to say the Chicago White Sox, but the Yankees could be playing the Oakland A's in this series. And while them getting swept in a series by the Oakland A's would be a shock, it's not something that's totally out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes baseball special, right? If you were to take the Kansas City Chiefs and have them play the Carolina Panthers 10 times, the idea that the Carolina Panthers would win more than once would sound completely absurd.
Yeah.
Because one team is better than the other, and that's a solved thing that we know. Well, we know it in baseball too, but baseball is just not a sport that answers many questions with a tiny sample. So the reality is, unfortunately, that all it comes down to is the Yankees have a better chance of winning than the Royals do, right? But this is why I said last week, the best chance you can have in a series is 60%. I genuinely believe that. That's just how the sport is.
Yeah.
And I think Yankees Royals, Mike, the scary thing about that series for the Yankees is like, I'll put it this way. I can make a much better argument that like, wow, that series was real close to being 2-0 Royals than I can make an argument, wow, that series was real close to being 2-0 Yankees. Like, series is 1-1.
Yeah.
It feels like the Yankees are fortunate that series is 1-1, which is nuts.
Yeah. Well, again, and it all boils down to what I said at the beginning. Very, very mediocre starting pitching to start. Garrett Cole on Saturday did not look good. He didn't look good. And it wasn't the kind of lack of command that you see where like he's walking a ton of guys. No, it was the worst kind. Like it was the lack of command where he's getting shelled. Like he was missing over the plate a lot. So that's a problem. And so look, Clark Schmidt gets the ball in game 3. I don't know that I have a problem with that. I think he's been very, very reliable all year. I mean, obviously, he missed 2 months in the middle of the summer, but whatever. I think he's going to be fine. I'm surprised that they went with Schmidt over Heel, but look, what you said is exactly right. The fact that the Yankees and the Royals are tied 1-1 seems fortunate for the Yankees. Like it bugs me to say that. And here's the thing, like I don't feel comfortable going into game 3 because the last time we faced Seth Lugo, he went like 7 shutty and had 6 no-hit innings. Like I'm not comfortable with that matchup, and it's in Kansas City. So I don't know. Look, Bryson Carver. I spoke with him on his show on Monday, and I'm sorry, not on Monday, on Friday, and he was saying that he didn't pick a single division winner to go to the championship series. So he had Tigers, Royals, Padres, Mets advancing. And he said, "Am I crazy?" And I said, "No, you're not crazy. I disagree, but you're not crazy."
There's nothing is crazy in baseball. That's the thing.
No. Well, and that's really the point. And we're going to talk about the rest of these series in a moment. But like I'm sitting here with my head in my hands, and I'll go back to what I said before. Like the Royals roster isn't good, but it doesn't matter because they're playing better now than they were 2 weeks ago, and that really seems to be all that matters. Like it's like I'll propose this from what you said. We have a regular season that's 6 months long. Let's make Major League Baseball playoffs 3 months long. Let's do it that way. We'll play 9 months out of the year.
I mean, I've actually said this non-jokingly in the past that like if Major League Baseball wants to do a better job of like not having their playoffs be a crapshoot, which by the way is not something I think Major League Baseball cares to solve. Like I think Major League Baseball likes it, right? But like if Major League Baseball wanted to like decided that what mattered to them was like we want the better team to win out in a series, like they would say, okay, you know what? You're going to play 15 games and it's first to win 8. Like that I think would be enough. That it's like, you know what? If a team beats you 8 times out of 15, like you had a chance to go cold and figure it out over that sample and you didn't, right? Like, but the reality especially with these 5-game series is like, dude, you go cold for 2 games and you're up against it. Like, or the other team gets hot for 2 games and you're up against it, man. Like that's the sport. I mean, like we talked about it with that's the thing, right? Like we both went into Mets Brewers and we were like, yeah, we think the Brewers are the better team. I still think the Brewers are probably the better of those 2 teams.
Yeah.
But the Mets are just playing good ball right now.
They are.
And that kind of just does it sometimes. So,
Yeah.
I promise, like, I'm not just going to keep saying over and over on this show, like, yeah, baseball is crazy. So it is what it is. But like, to some extent, like that is like,
it's true.
Into my head, that is the answer to a lot of these questions. It's like, yeah, like variance. That's the sport.
That's 100% right. That is 100% right. Makes me sick to my stomach. Really does. Makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. So your turn. I mean, look, the Dodgers took a nice game 1 win, and then game 2 they get absolutely shellacked. So You've had, like you said, you've had about 24 hours to simmer. How you feeling?
So I feel better now than I did before the series. Like a good bit better, actually. A couple reasons why. Number one, that game one win is a game that we lose over the last 10 years in the playoffs. I've seen us win that game over and over. Because we don't usually display the fight in our body language. We don't usually display the fight in the game to battle back over and over when we get punched in the mouth. Like, we tend to wilt. And they didn't wilt in game one, which I was really impressed by. Like, when Yamamoto gives up 3 runs in the first inning and the Padres are swaggering around the ballpark, letting their nuts hang, like, you very much have this feeling of like, oh boy, here we go. Like, this is what I thought was going to happen. Now I got to sit here and watch it. Like, sick. And then the Dodgers immediately put good at bats on Dylan Cease. They put patient at bats on him from inning 1, made him work, scored, I think, 4 runs off of him, and knocked him out of the game in the 5th inning. Okay. Like, it was they were putting together thoughtful at bats. They knocked him out of the game early. And Mike, I'll be damned, Dave Roberts managed a perfect game in game 1. Like, reacted quickly to Yamamoto not having it. Cool. Like, went to his high leverage bullpen arms early. Like, didn't wait, like, didn't save them for a opportunity that might not exist down the line. And most importantly, when one of those high leverage arms, Michael Kopech, came into the game and clearly didn't have it, throwing 4 straight balls, he didn't wait. He immediately got Blake Treinen warming up in the bullpen, knowing that, okay, well, unless I see something totally different from Kopech over the next 2 batters, he's seeing his 3 batter minimum and he's getting out of the game. I thought he managed all of that well. And then he brought Treinen into the game. Didn't feel, he's like, okay, well, it does Treinen feel good enough to go in the 9th? Sure. All right. Well, that's us burning him for game 2, but you got to get this one. And so look, what I'm encouraged by is I'm seeing a team playing with a little bit of a chip on its shoulder. Like, you can see it in their body language. You can see it in they're talking a little talk. Like, it's a team that is being managed relatively effectively through 2 games. I think they're hitting the ball pretty well. Like, even in game 2, I think we squared up a lot of balls against Darvish. You get home run robbed. You go bases loaded and you have a line drive double play to the first baseman. Like, okay, like, not your night. My other take on game 2 is like, the final score is 10-2. The reality of that game is that's a pretty tight game for most of the night. And then the Dodgers late are like, okay, we burned all of our high leverage relievers in game 1. We're trailing here. We're going to see if we can get some outs with our low leverage guys. And it didn't happen. All right, I can live with it. Like, that's not, I don't think that's bad managing. I think it's just like, okay, well, like, we're going to need Treinen and Kopech and those guys in game 3 and game 4 and game 5 potentially. Like, putting them out there when you're down 5-2 doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, see if you can sneak an Enriquez inning by them and get your offense back up there. So, and Darvish was excellent in game 2. Like, you got to hand it to him. He was dotting sliders wherever he wanted to. Like, the way he pitched Ohtani that first at bat of the game, I was like, oh boy, like, he was locked in. So sometimes a team comes into your building, hits 6 home runs, like, you tip your cap. Like, I didn't feel like, I'll put it this way. Where the Dodgers really piss me off in the playoffs are the games where I feel like we're getting either outfoxed or we're beating ourselves. Like, we're just doing dumb shit. Like, last night a team just came in and played a damn good baseball game and beat us. I can live with it. So, I know it doesn't feel good when you have home field advantage and you split the 2 home games because you feel like you gave something up. I don't feel that way with the Dodgers. Like, I think the reality for us is we're the underdog in this series. Like, I know we're not the betting underdog in this series, but the reality is, like, if you look at how complete these pitching staffs are and like where these teams are at right now, we're the underdog in the series. And so to take one of the 2, now for me, my mission is let's take one of the 2 at Petco and let's give ourselves a shot in a game 5 at home, and you never know what'll happen. But still not confident we're going to win the series. I think the most likely result is we lose the next 2 in San Diego and that's it. But I feel better now than I did going into it.
Yeah. Well, look, here's one way to look at it. And this is how I felt, 10 minutes ago when the Yankees just lost, was none of these series really are any different, right? Like every series is 1-1. So every home team has split their home games. You know what I mean? So there is no like at least in my at least from like an outsider's perspective, there is no like okay, one team has the clear advantage over the other. It's just all right. It's hectic, but it's balanced in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to look at. I am almost disappointed, and like I'm happy that like you feel better about where the Dodgers are at right now, but I'm disappointed that Dave Roberts is not totally fucking driven you nuts. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the show itself is losing a little bit because Dave Roberts is managing well.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I'm always going to tell you what I'm actually seeing, right?
Yeah.
And like I haven't shat on Dave Roberts all these years because I've wanted to. Like I actually think he's a really good person, and I'd like to see him succeed. But like he's just been that bad. So far over these two playoff games, like game one, I thought his managing was a big part of why we won. And game two, like I mean, he didn't have a whole lot to do with that outcome. Like we just got pushed.
Yeah.
So I think you pick up the pieces. You go to game three. Walker Buehler pitched pretty well against San Diego last week. Michael King shoved against us last week too. I think King clearly is the advantage between those two right now. But like, hey, find a way to scratch across a couple runs off King. Keep yourself in that game late. Find a way. And then game four is where like, hey, that's when things start to look a little bit, here's the thing. If the Dodgers win game three, game four, the Padres are going bullpen game, or maybe Martin Perez, because Joe Musgrove's gone. So, like,
you don't think that they would go Dylan Cease on short rest?
Season on the line, maybe. I mean, I guess you're talking what, Saturday? So you got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It'd be 3 days rest for Cease. I don't know if he's done that in the past. So
yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, like, because obviously I don't know this on the top of my head, and I'm using my phone to stream right now, so I can't really look up stats. So I'm relying on you for a lot of this. But how many pitches did Dylan Cease throw on Saturday? I'm so yeah, Saturday.
I know when he got pulled, he wanted to keep going. So I don't think he emptied the tank. Let me pull it up.
Because if he was in the 70-ish range,
82.
Okay.
I mean, that's still a full start.
Like, it is.
In terms of how your recovery goes. But here's the other thing, though. Like, if you're the Padres, is Cease on short rest like a magic bullet? Because this is a guy that the Dodgers have touched up for 8 runs over 2 starts against them in the last 2 weeks. Like we hit him. We hit him in the last week of the regular season, and we hit him hard in this playoff game.
Yeah. No, it's possible that's something that I'm sure that's something that they factor in. So they'll go inning 1 Jeremiah Estrada, and then for the rest of the game, they'll throw Martin Perez for 3 innings and then go bullpen for the rest of it.
I mean, the Joe Musgrove injury really does.
It hurts. It hurts.
And I think like for the Dodgers, you're still in a spot where like I don't know. Like I think the Dodgers were never going to sweep this series, right? It's a series that like the path of the Dodgers winning it was always a long series of punch counterpunch where we find a way.
Yeah.
With our bats. And I think that scenario is still on the table. Like, I don't know. I thought we'd be down 2-0. I'm not that upset. And like the thing is last night's game, it gets to 5-1 and then 6-1. And I'm kind of like, okay, well now I can kind of exhale, right? It's like, all right, like there's something better about that than being down 3-1 where you're chasing the game with Blake Trinan on the mound. Or you're chasing the game with, you know what I mean? Like Evan Phillips on the mound. It's like, no, we're just going to throw Michael Grove out there. If they want to hit a few homers off of him, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the Padres with a 6-run lead had Tanner Scott on the mound, had Jason Adam on the mound.
Yeah.
I mean, like everybody gets a day's rest, but like, I don't know, that might not be a great thing for them.
Yeah, well, yeah, and really the reality is that in these kind of high leverage games, you almost don't have a choice but to do that, right? Like you can't throw the game away. So you know you're going to be safe and use your high leverage guys even when you're up big on up big in a game. So you do kind of get like collaterally fucked in that sense, but that's the nature of postseason baseball. Is when you win games, you got to use your best resources and then deal with the consequences after.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
okay, so we've talked about the Yankees and the Royals. We've talked about the Dodgers and the Padres. Let's talk about the Mets and the Phillies, right? Because this really seems to be like I think it's the wildest series that we've had out of the four. I mean, the Mets somehow Zach Wheeler in game one was lights fucking out. And the Mets still come out and win that ball game. And then in game two, you're looking at Edwin Diaz completely shitting the bed late in the game with the Mets up, and then the Phillies eventually walking it off at the end of the game. I mean, this is like, I feel bad for Met fans in a way. Well, I should never say that because I should never feel bad for Met fans. But they are in nail biter after nail biter, dating back to the wild card series. I mean, every game is like you're feeling tightness in your chest.
Dating back
So,
to the last 2 weeks of the season, even really.
yeah. So, I mean, what do you take away from this? Do you feel any differently than you did a few days ago? What do you make of Mets Phillies right now?
I think the thing that like kind of is getting talked about and maybe isn't getting talked about enough is like the Mets offense right now is just kind of on another planet in terms of their ability to like when the chips are down and they need somebody to just get on base and find a hole.
Yep.
They're doing that in a way that like World Series teams do, where it's just like, man, it just felt like that whole October, that team, every time they needed a hit, they got one, right? Like, and they're just all of a sudden, boom. Like it's like the Astros in 2017, cheating aside, had that energy to them. Now these Mets are not as good as that team, right? But like they had that energy to them where it just felt like even like, okay, I'm up 6-4 in the eighth inning, but like I just know these guys are about to string together 4 hits in a row. Like it's just what they've been doing. Like,
yeah, right.
They're starting to have that offensive aura about them that makes them scary. And I think for Philly, it takes away a little bit from the absurdity of the Red October Citizens Bank Park home field advantage when you're playing a team in your division that's played there a million times.
Yeah, true.
Like, the Mets don't really give a shit about Citizens Bank Park because they play there all the time. They're like, whatever, right? You're an hour down the road. We go play all the time. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit like, like if the Braves were playing there, right? Same type of energy. Whereas like when the Dodgers have to go to Philly or the Padres have to go to Philly or,
if Milwaukee had beaten the Mets,
right,
and they would have needed to go to Philly, you're 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that plays a part in it. I do think though that like, Philly finding a way to win that game in game two could be really big for like their ability to just kind of stay sane, right? Like, because you look at the matchups in this series from a pitching perspective, and it doesn't feel like the Mets should be in it. Like,
it's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you look at the bullpens and the rotations, and you're like, it's not like the Mets have a better offense than Philly, right? So like, Philly's going to be favored in every game, but I mean, I'll say this: the Mets are scarier than the Royals. They're scarier than the Tigers to me, right? Like, I think the Mets have a real offense. I think the Royals and Tigers are just kind of on like Linsanity runs,
Yeah. Well,
So
that's interesting because I feel like that's something that we've said about the Mets in the past too, is that this doesn't feel real. Like this feels a bit like flash in the pan, like not legit stuff. But I mean, they're kind of shoving it up our ass, Dalton, a little bit. Like that. Like, look, like I'll say that, like as good of a year as Lindor has had, he's only become really a piece of what that offense is now. Like Mark Vientos is a real player. Like that kid can hit, really, really hit. So I mean, you're looking up and down the lineup with Nimmo and Pete Alonso, obviously being as productive as he is, coming up huge in the wild card game at the very last moment off Devin Williams.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. They seem to be getting the big hit whenever they need it. And listen, I said this. I think if they get any semblance of consistency out of their pitching staff, like, they're not like a long shot for the World Series. Like, they're just not. I don't know that they are.
Still think they are. I still think they are. And that's not me saying that it's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's baseball. But I still think that they are. And part of the reason that I'll throw a little bit of water on the Mets is, like, there's a little bit of, like, how many times can the Plinko machine land on you, right? Like, they were very close to getting swept that last day of the season in Atlanta and not even being here.
Yeah, it's true.
They were like a moment away from losing to Milwaukee in the wild card series.
Yeah.
They were 5 or 6 outs away from being down 2-0 in this series so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, the offense is real. The Mets are clearly like an annoying team to have to play.
Yeah.
There is part of me though that's like, man, like, how many times can the ball bounce your way right when it needs to? And they're creating their own luck. I'm not taking away credit from the guys who are hitting, right? But it's like,
yeah,
like it's tough when you have to be perfectly clutch because you don't have the like they're not going into very many like late games with a lead. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you feel like, as of today, like, do you still like the Phillies to come out of that series?
Yes.
Okay.
Not as emphatically as I did previously,
because
I don't think you can feel as emphatically about anything in these series as we did previously. But yeah, I mean, I think realistically, if Philly can win one of 2 games with Aaron Nola and Ranger Suarez on the mound,
yeah,
both studs, right? Like, if they can win a game with either one of those guys on the mound in Queens, they're coming back to Philly, like,
with Wheeler in Game 5.
Wheeler on the mound in Game 5 in front of that crowd. Like, it's hard to not feel like there's
who just went 7 shutty on them like a couple of days ago. Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I'm still picking Philadelphia, but I think something that's important to note is that Citi Field is not a hitter's ballpark. That is a very, very pitcher friendly ballpark. So, like I said, if Sean Manaea comes out and shoves one night, which he has all year in Citi Field, then, we're having a very interesting conversation regarding the Mets next week. So
the Mets, and it like really pains me greatly to say this, but the Mets are like a less talented version of the Dodgers a little bit right now, where it's like they're kind of like for the Dodgers, the MO right now is like, can your starting pitching keep you in a game?
Yeah.
Like, your starting pitching is not going to be great because you just don't have the horses right now. But it's like, can your starting pitching keep you in a game? The Mets are kind of the same way, to like a less talented degree, but they're kind of the same way where it's like, man, like, if their starting pitching can do enough to keep them in the game, that offense seems to be keeping them afloat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's where like a guy like Manaea, a guy like Severino, like they have a whole bunch of dudes who like are not great, but they might be good enough.
Yeah, right.
So, by the way, Manaea just did see Philadelphia on the 21st of September. Got through 7 innings, gave up 3 runs, so really good start there. Faced them in May, 6 innings, 1 run. Faced them in June, got shelled, 6 runs over 3.2. So he's seen a lot of Philly this year, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And mixed results is what I'd call it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We will see. It's an interesting series. It certainly has been so far. Last series, we have Detroit and Cleveland. Tarek Skubal was outstanding today, right? And as we expect him to be. He's allowed no runs over, 13 innings so far this postseason, dating back to when he played when he pitched against the Astros in the wild card series. Like, that dude is like, if there's going to be a pitcher in baseball that will carry a team through the postseason, it'll be Tarek Skubal with the Tigers, I think. Like, it seems like, and you kind of said this last week, his starts almost feel like auto wins. Like, they just almost feel like they are. So, like, if you're Cleveland, you got to win the games that he doesn't pitch. So you can't afford to not win a game that he doesn't pitch.
Yeah. I still feel like Cleveland like should comfortably win this series. It feels that way still to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Like today was such a mojo game in that series, and what I mean by that is like, I had Cleveland plus 110 because I just felt like Cleveland as an underdog didn't make a ton of sense. Like I thought, I just think it's giving the Tigers too much respect, even with Skubal on the mound. And I got what I wanted in the game, which was Matthew Boyd matching Skubal and keeping the Tigers offense down and kind of neutralizing the Skubal start. What I didn't see coming is Kerry Carpenter taking Emmanuel Clase deep, because the whole handicap with that series is like, if you're the Guardians, it's like, all right, well, if our starter can do enough that we're tied or leading going into the end of that game, like that's where the Guardians just kind of like squeeze the life out of you a little bit.
Yeah, right.
And the Tigers slaying that dragon in Clase at home in his ballpark in Cleveland, like, I don't know, man. I'm not a big like narrative momentum guy generally, but like you got to imagine now Clase is going to come into he's going to pitch again in that series, right?
Yeah.
And now he's going to be facing a confident Tigers team that knows they can get to him, probably at home in a Rocket Stadium in Detroit. Like, I don't know. That home run might reverberate throughout the rest of the series. It also might just be, all right, they won the Skubal start, but they're going to have to hit a heck of a lot better than they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think Cleveland is, in a way, I feel like I got to apologize to Cleveland, because I was saying that their pitching staff, like obviously outside of their bullpen, their starting pitching staff going into this series, I felt was actually kind of bad, right? Yeah. Like you're rolling Matthew Boyd, you're rolling Tanner Bybee, like right? Like what are we doing? Like this is the playoffs. We're not. This isn't just some random AL Central series in July. Like, but look, I gotta get. Detroit has always kind of been, I mean, throughout the season, a fairly mid offensive team, right? Like they don't really produce runs at a high level. They've really kind of lived on the back of their pitching for most of the year, right? Starting pitching and bullpen combined, really. So Cleveland, who is kind of, like you're saying, pretty much shortening games, like that's what makes this whole Kerry Carpenter off Emmanuel Clase thing so big, is that, okay, now, like, you've slain the dragon here. Like, you've really conquered the beast.
Yeah.
Like, does that resonate throughout the rest of the series? And even if, like, there's no, like, actual tangible result to that, it's more like, dare I say, like, vibes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, like, how comfortable does Stephen Vogt feel about, like, maybe I shouldn't say that, because obviously he's going to go to his guy, but at the same time, it's like, okay, he's been shown that he isn't invincible.
Yeah, I think on that one in particular, with the Clase thing, I think it has a lot more to do with the Tigers and the Guardians, right? Like I think the Guardians are going to be able to look at that and just be like, all right, like this guy's the best. He's the best relief pitcher in the world. Gave up a homer. It happens once in a blue moon. It happened tonight, right? Mm-hmm. I think the Guardians can flush that pretty easily. At least that's my opinion of it. Yeah, but I think it's big for the Tigers, because I think that there's like a certain psyche when a reliever like that comes into the game where it's like, shit, like, yeah, we're gonna go up there and try to hit this guy, but like, man, come on, you know what I mean? And now it's like, especially when you're gonna have a home crowd that's hyped, and you know that you already did it. Like, I think that there's but not tangible is maybe too harsh of a word, but like I think there's a real like mentality difference for Detroit the
Yeah.
next Los A comes into a game where like there's going to be actual belief on that side. So, but no, it definitely matters. I think the problem for Detroit is going to be like, look, Cleveland is going to keep doing this like Ponzi, this like run prevention Ponzi scheme where they bring out this like random old veteran pitcher who like has had some kind of pixie dust sprinkled on him. It's a little bit of like the 2021 Giants. Like they were doing this too, where
Yeah.
it feels like it's like this team is not a 107 win team, but like I guess this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like they're just going to keep bringing out like Alex Cobb starts in their next game, and you're like, really? Like Alex Cobb? And you look and he's got a 2.76 ERA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, right?
I mean, I think he's made 4 starts, but 2.76 is still 2.76.
And it's also
But-
kind of who he's been the last few years in San Francisco, too. Like, he's kind of just been this annoyingly good pitcher where you can't really put your finger on how.
Oh man, I love it. I really do. It's something else, really. When it comes to postseason baseball. Yes. So, I'll wrap it up by saying this. What do you feel any differently about any of these series? Whereas, like, okay, starting out, you had the Yankees over the Royals. Now you feel a little differently. Where, like, have any of your predictions changed through the first 2 games?
So I wouldn't say that my predictions have changed because, like, if I like the Yankees in a 5-game series, I'm naturally going to like them in a 3-game series, right? Like, if I like the Padres in a 5-game series, I'm naturally going to like them in a 3-game series. But your confidence interval, like, tightens in our, like, you become a lot less confident. You know what I mean? Tightening is actually the opposite of what I mean, but we don't need to go into like math and probabilities, but like the idea of like before the Dodgers Padres series, and I'll just use that one as an example because it's the one that I've absolutely watched the most of. Like, I went into that series thinking like we're just not built to deal with a team like this in the playoffs. Like, this is going to go poorly. It's going to go poorly quickly.
Yeah.
And us hitting Cease and hitting their bullpen the way we did in game 1 is kind of what we did last week when we took 2 out of 3 from them in another series that I thought we were screwed over, that I thought we were screwed in. Like 2 weeks ago, when we were going into that final series of the year between the Dodgers and Padres, I remember telling you I'd be thrilled if we took 1.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Padres are such a better team than us right now. They're coming into our building swaggering. Like, I'd be thrilled if we took 1, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've beaten them 3 out of 5 times in the last 2 weeks. It's really not a crazy thing to imagine us beating them 2 out of 3 in the next 4 days. Like,
yeah. Well, I'll say this, because the way that you've talked about the Dodgers and the Padres over the past month or so has, in a way, made it seem like the Padres are the big red machine and the Dodgers are the White Sox. Like, you've kind of treated it as like with so much dread heading in that we almost forget that the Dodgers are a really good baseball team too. So like, it makes sense if the Dodgers end up winning the series, I feel more confidently in the Padres, but I'm not going to be like stunned out of my gourd if the Dodgers end up pulling this out. Like,
no, of course not. Yeah, no, I mean, definitely not. It's just I don't know. I just look at this next pitching matchup and I'm like, Walker Buehler. Like, I don't have confidence with him against anybody right now. Like, the sticky stuff thing. Like, and even before his last injury, he's not that guy that he was in 2021, where he was throwing 98 and just like elite, right? Like, he's just not that pitcher anymore, and he doesn't throw enough strikes. And like, I don't know. I will say this from like a narratives perspective, I like where we're at. Like, I like that things got chippy in game 2, and like, obviously the Dodger fans who are throwing shit onto the field, there's no excuse for that. That's stupid and awful and whatever.
Yeah.
Padre fans have also, in the last couple of years, there have been instances of them throwing shit on the field with Dodger players. Like, every fan base has good people and bad people, and you hope that the bad people don't show up like they did at Dodger Stadium the other night. Bad look for the fan base.
Yeah.
All of that aside, right? Like, the Padres also like, and I was sitting here watching the game with my buddy who is a Twins fan, right? He works for the Twins, he's a Twins fan. And like he kind of felt watching the game as like a relatively third party observer. He's like, man, like this Padres team like really badly wants to be a villain. Like really badly wants to be a villain. And Dave Roberts talked about that today, how they really badly want to be a villain. And then there's this whole thing about Manny Machado like throwing the ball into the Dodger dugout at Dave Roberts at a speed that was not comfortable. And there's a little bit of like, man, like I feel like the Padres have this opportunity to be like the more likable team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch their antics on the field and you're like, ugh. Like at least that like the Jerks and Profar thing was cool, right? Like robbing the home run and then acting like you don't have it and like kind of smiling and teasing the fan, like that was fun.
That's funny, yeah.
Natured, right? Like that was good stuff. But
yeah,
the Tatis like spending the entire last 4 innings of the game like jawing at fans and gyrating at fans, and then like even when he's in the dugout, like it's like man,
it's just dry humping the air.
but it's one of those things that it's like I get that like you're talking your shit and like that's fine, but you kind of start looking like an idiot. Like it's like the fans are in your head that much, dude. Like
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things. Can I say this too? That's one of the things that I like really respect about Ohtani is that like as big of a star and as like everybody knows that Ohtani's the best player in baseball. Like he is the most silent, humble dude I think in the game for as big as he is.
Yeah,
the guy doesn't showboat. The guy doesn't do like I kind of fall on the line of just like I'm a little bit old fashioned. Like I don't mind players having fun, but there's a line that you probably shouldn't cross, and enough is enough in certain instances.
Sure.
But I like it when guys, like old school football, right? Like, you score a touchdown, you hand the ball back to the referee, like celebrating all that shit. But I don't know. I like the humbleness of the whole thing. That's one of the things that I respect about Ohtani, and one of the things that I almost hold against guys like Tatis.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fine line with it. Like, I think with Ohtani, like he has started to show more emotion, and he started to like emote more when he hits a home run. Like he really flipped his bat when he hit that homer the other night. But the difference is that with Ohtani, it's all very like I'm excited about what just happened in this moment in the game, and I'm like celebrating like with my teammates, right?
Yeah.
Like I like that. I think the Machado and Tatis stuff is bordering a little bit on like, is this about you guys winning or is this about you guys sticking it to the Dodgers and their fans? Like, and it kind of like, I think it's reaching a point for the Padres where like, if they lose game 3 at home, like it's going to be fair to question, like, is it a distraction for them that like they're this obsessed with the Dodgers? Like, I don't know if you noticed this. The game 2 against the Braves, when they won to finish that series, the Padres, like they ring the bell that says Padres win on the scoreboard. And it's like, they have a whole thing to do when they win, right? Where they show the bells ringing and it says Padres win.
Yeah.
They didn't do any of that when they beat the Braves. The moment the last out of that game was recorded, the scoreboard said beat LA, and they prompted beat LA chants. I'm talking the Braves aren't even off the field yet at Petco.
Yeah.
Like the fixation with the Dodgers on the Padres or with the Padres on the Dodgers is something that like I think if the Dodgers can shift things to where the pressure's on the Padres, could put the Padres in a position where they start kind of clamming up. Like I could see that happening. I could also see the Padres rolling, like if they do get past the Dodgers, rolling into an NLCS and not being able to summon that same energy for the Phillies or the Mets. So things to talk about there. Like I also think like the video once you actually see it of like Machado throwing the ball into the dugout, it's like that actually is kind of alarming. Like that's like pretty violent in a way that's kind of weird, and like he has a history of stuff like this, like where he kind of like half accidentally threw the bat at an umpire when he was with the Orioles, and like he's got a history of weird stuff, right? So
I feel like the Padres, because I think I agree with everything you're saying. I do think that this series, even if it's subconsciously, is more about beating the Dodgers than actually going to the NLCS. Like I do feel that way. But the other part of it is that I almost feel like the Padres are a team designed for like social media.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they pay attention to that. They make a visible effort to be like aesthetically pleasing to the people that are like, rah baseball. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like
the people who want to watch hot dog baseball. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Like it's very, like you said, with Tatis gyrating and the personalities they have in that ball club, I think is comical in a lot of ways. But it just seems like they care about how they're perceived rather than, the task at hand.
Yeah. I mean, I think like a small example of what you're talking about is like there was a play, it was really subtle. I don't think very many people noticed it, but I think it was Tommy Edman stole second base and was safe by like a mile. Like slid into the base, pop-up slide, is standing up on the base.
Yeah.
Bad throw. Cronenworth goes over, catches it on a short hop, but it's taking him away from the base. Like there's no play here. Right?
Yeah.
Cronenworth still took the ball and smacked the shit out of Edman with a tag. And it's like he's been on the base for like 3 full seconds. Like relax, right? Like it's exactly the kind of like performative shit the Padres are all about. Like you know when you're in Little League and there's that one player on your team that like really wants to dive into first base head first.
Yes. Yep.
That's the Padres as a team. That's the energy that they bring. And like I think that energy they bring is something that like when the Dodgers don't match it is a problem for the Dodgers. But part of why I'm like starting to gain a little bit of confidence is the Dodgers are kind of starting, like you can kind of see that they're a little bit like, nah, fuck these guys about it. Like the Dodgers are starting to get annoyed with the Padres.
Yeah.
I think is healthy. Like they're starting, like I kind of want the Dodgers, like I think that attitude can take them a lot further in a raucous in a raucous Petco Park than the like, well, we're just going to let our play do the talking. Like, no, like go in there pissed, like go in there, like go in there flipping off the crowd a little bit. Right. Like I want to see some of that energy from us. And I think we might this week, especially because, the Padres are such a soft franchise that they restricted ticket sales to only people in San Diego County because they were that worried that we were going to take over their stadium like we do almost all the time. So to me, like, fuck them a little bit. Okay. Fuck them.
I really hope. Oh man. I love this. I love this. I do. I love the rivalry. And honestly, it feels very Yankee Mets. It does. It feels very, very Yankee Mets. So that's something that I can appreciate about this. Okay, so there we go. Every series tied 1-1. I'm still. I think I'm still pretty chalked up from how I feel. Like I still think unfortunately for you, I still think the Padres probably win that series. I still got the Yankees. I still got the Phillies. I still have Cleveland. But listen, the fact that all of these series are 1-1, as I wrote in the description of this stream, it kind of makes for a pretty exciting week going forward. Like this is going to be a fun week.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because I think this is the right way to frame it. Which team that you picked to win are you least confident in now?
I mean, I'm kind of fresh off a Yankee loss, so I'm trying to not be pessimistic and say the Yankees. But here's the reality. Here's what worries me: is that we got Lugo in Game 3. If we lose that, we are pretty much certain to face Cole Reagans again, and that bothers me. Like that is not comfortable.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. No, I will. I will say that because now that I think about it, I think it would either be the Royals over the Yankees or the Mets over the Phillies. I think, but I don't know. I would. I'll stick to my guns, and maybe my lack of faith in the Yankees will then in turn reverse the universe and catapult some Yankee success going forward. But all right, I'll go with that. I'll go with that. I just think the matchups are a little screwy for the Yankees, and if they don't right the ship in their starting pitching, I think it could get like if the Yankees don't get 2 quality starts, like this series could be over by Friday. And I'm not no, I'm not emotionally prepared for that. So
I want to give you what I like because this is going to surprise you. For me, the answer is Dodgers Padres.
based on the conversation we've had for the last 20 minutes, it doesn't really surprise me anymore.
Because I've really shifted from like thinking the Padres were like sweep material in this series, and to like I think, man, I mean, I still lean Padres to win the series, but like I'm at like 52-48 now. Like
that's interesting.
Like I saw enough in game 1 that I'm like their best arms don't scare us. So like unless their starter shoves against us, we're gonna have a shot to win every game. And I mean, Michael King might shove, but they don't really have a starter who's likely to shove in game 4.
Yeah.
And if Michael King doesn't shove, they're in trouble. So I don't know, man. Like you're not used to seeing optimistic Dodger fan me, especially after a 10-2 game. I know it's not what you were expecting, but like, game 1 carried a lot of weight for me, man. It really did. And like game 2, I was kind of just like, all right, fine. But I feel good. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Listen, I hope that after Wednesday, I'll have the same faith with the Yankees. I really do. I really do. Listen, I'll say this. The positive that I can take from game 1 is that despite how often we gave up the lead, we took it back. Like that I feel confident in, right? There was at least some fight with the bats. Even in tonight's loss, against Lucas Urseg, who is the Royals' best bullpen guy, right? Chisholm homered off him in the first 2 or 3 pitches of the at-bat. John Birdie ripped a single into right field before the game ended, right? Like, it's not like it's a loss, but you put some good at-bats together in the 9th inning to kind of be like, okay, we can take that into game 3. So,
by the way, one more comment on the Royals and Yankees series that I want to make. Bob Costas is brutal, man.
Oh my God! Thank you for saying that. I would have totally forgot. Oh my God!
Like,
oh my God!
He's a legendary broadcaster. He's had a legendary career, all that, right? But like,
no doubt. Yep.
Like, I think part of why I think he's brutal is a little different than why you think he's brutal. Like,
okay.
And I'm not usually this guy because usually if I feel this way, it's because the Dodgers are in a series and I'm naturally inclined to feel like people.
Yep.
Like, dude, he is like he might as well be wearing a Yankee hat in the booth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of brutal. Like when the Royals turned that double play.
Yeah, it was
the 7th inning. His call, like he sounded like somebody just shot his dog. And it's like, Bob, like I get that like the crowd was all excited for a big moment and it didn't happen, but like you got to understand that like you're broadcasting this game to a neutral audience, theoretically half of which is like pumping their fist about that double play, and you just took all the air out of that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was lame. Like, and the same thing late in that game, like John Birdie gets the base hit and Bob Costas is like, and it's a base hit in the end. The tying run comes to the plate, like super pumped. And then the Royals record the final out, and he's like, and this series will go tied to Kansas City. And it's like, oh, okay, sorry, Bob. Like, so that's my
yeah. Well, and that's 100% true. And Bob Costas has a history of calling Yankee games, right? Like he's done games for yes. So like I'm assuming that he has some sort of leniency towards the Yankees, and I completely understand it, and I agree. The reason I can't stand it is because Bob Costas calls baseball games as if he's narrating a baseball documentary.
Yep.
It drives me bananas. It really does. And now for the Yanks, I'm like, talk like a person. Like, I don't understand why you have to be all like, that's one of the things that like, and as much as like a Yankee fan that I am, and as much respect as I have, like that's one of the things that kind of bugged me about John Sterling was that every moment for John Sterling was, well, I have 9 testicles and I'm going to talk like it. Like it's that kind of shit. Like,
Yeah.
and I've never been a huge Ron Darling fan either, and it's probably because he broadcasts the Mets, and I can just hear it with him too. But
I'm
so
sorry.
when I heard
Testicles is really funny.
what's that?
9 testicles is funny.
But it's like it's remarkable how like when they announced all of the broadcast teams for every series, I genuinely felt like we got the worst one. When they saw, all right, it's going to be Bob Costas and Ron Darling. I'm like, shit. I'm like, this sucks. So now I have to root against the Royals and root against Bob Costas because it's the worst broadcast. Like, I will say this though, I would take Bob Costas over Carl Ravitch. Still,
Oh God, yes. Oh God, yes.
I would take Bob Costas and Rob Darling over Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez.
Carl Ravitch doesn't watch baseball. So, I mean, like it's obvious when you watch his broadcast that he doesn't watch the game. Like he doesn't love the game. He doesn't like he watches the game that he broadcasts, and that's it. And I can't. Yeah, no, don't. Yeah.
What did you say last time when we talked about it? He mails it in every time?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's every year. Like I always like the playoffs better when the Dodgers are on Fox instead of on TBS. Like I just think
yes,
because obviously like the leagues flip flop on that every year.
Yeah,
and the even years when the National League is on like Fox, like it just feels like the games are a bigger deal.
Well,
when the games on TBS, they feel small time. Like
Fox does. And as a guy who has been in broadcasting for a little bit, Fox does the way Fox does baseball is as good or better than any other network does any other sport.
I would agree with that.
They get it 1,000% right. Like everything from on-field sound to capturing crowd noise, quality of broadcasters. Like I still think, and I know that he's like the Dodger guy now after Vin Scully, but like Joe Davis and John Smoltz are the best tandem in baseball, hands down, from a broadcast perspective. At least for my view, I would take them over almost anybody.
Smoltz like hits you with like, if at least from my taste, too many platitudes where it's like he's just saying words, but he's not really giving you anything of value. You know what I mean? So like,
I get it.
I'm not really into Smoltz, but Joe Davis is a pro. I mean, like
Joe Davis is fantastic. Listen, I've always been a Matt Vasgersian guy. I miss him in the playoffs too. I know this, but I don't know. The excitement that I get with Matt Vasgersian in big moments is outstanding. That's why I take him.
I'll give him this. He loves the game, and you can tell he loves the game.
Yeah.
And I'll give him that. But for me, it's like it's the high-pitched voice.
Yeah.
It's you know what else it is too? This like Santa Maria when somebody hits a home run.
Yeah, that's a little dumb.
Forced and contrived, and you're not even Latin American. And it's just like, for me, it's like Vasgersian, like I'll give him the credit for the excitement, but I just find him kind of cringe.
Listen, to each his own, right?
Yeah.
To each his own. But all right, we've gone an hour, which I think is longer than what we expected. But Dalton, any closing words before we say goodnight?
No, just excited to watch some more baseball and talk emotionally about it next week.
That's right, 100%. All right, that's Dalton Brown. I'm Mike Guido. This is the Bi-Coastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. A little bit of an instant reaction. Like I said, it was a little. This was meant to be very, very informal, and I think for the most part it was. But we ended up dragging a little bit. It's fine. We'll figure it out one of these days. But next week again, we'll be back. Figure something out again for playoff baseball. This is the time to be here. So make sure to tune in every week. We will see you next week.